When you look at the wealthiest nations on Earth, you usually find a predictable geographic lottery ticket: vast reserves of oil, deep veins of valuable minerals, millions of acres of arable farmland, or physical control over a major oceanic trade route. Switzerland possesses none of those obvious advantages. It is completely landlocked. It has no major fossil fuel reserves and relatively few commercially significant natural resources. Much of its territory is dominated by steep alpine terrain that is difficult to farm or develop. For centuries, this geography severely constrained the Swiss economy. Local cantons became so dependent on foreign income that they exported something they had in abundance: people. Highly trained Swiss pikemen hired themselves out as mercenary soldiers to fight in the wars of other European powers, bringing money back to the mountains. Yet today, the economic data tells a deeply contradictory story. Switzerland ranks among the world's richest economies by GDP per person, regularly exceeding $100,000 on a nominal basis. It dramatically outpaces countries with vastly larger territories and far greater natural resource endowments. The concentration of financial wealth is equally remarkable. Switzerland became one of the world's most important centers for cross-border private wealth, attracting international capital not because of what was beneath its mountains, but because of what its institutions promised above them. They bypassed the need to extract enormous quantities of physical resources. Instead, Switzerland engineered something far less visible: an infrastructure of predictability. It turned stability, discretion, and trust into globally valuable economic assets. The architectural blueprint for that system began taking shape in 1815. At the Congress of Vienna, the major European powers formally recognized Switzerland's permanent neutrality. The Swiss had powerful reasons to pursue this status. They were surrounded by larger states whose wars repeatedly threatened smaller territories and disrupted trade. Neutrality offered Switzerland something its geography could not: protection from being drawn into Europe's endless conflicts. 33 years later, Switzerland added another layer of internal stability. The 1848 Federal Constitution created a modern federal state while preserving substantial political authority at the cantonal level. Over time, this decentralized system, combined with direct democratic institutions, made it extraordinarily difficult for political power to become concentrated in a single national authority. Switzerland was building two shields at once: neutrality against external conflict and decentralization against internal instability. As the 20th century arrived, that dual shield faced its ultimate test. While much of Europe mobilized for two devastating world wars, Switzerland remained officially neutral. Its neighbors suffered enormous destruction, millions of deaths, disrupted production, and severe financial dislocation. Switzerland was not untouched by either war. It mobilized its military, faced economic pressure, and had to navigate a dangerous position between competing powers. But its industrial infrastructure and territory avoided the level of physical destruction experienced by much of the continent. That gave Switzerland something extraordinarily valuable after the wars: continuity. Its factories were still standing. Its financial institutions were still operating. Its currency and political institutions had survived. And as European governments emerged from war, carrying enormous debts and facing severe economic pressures, wealthy individuals across the continent faced a new problem. Where could they place their money? Switzerland offered an answer. Its political stability, neutral status, strong currency, and banking institutions made it an attractive destination for international capital. Over time, financial discretion became one of the country's most famous exports. The Banking Act of 1934 strengthened bank secrecy by making the unauthorized disclosure of client information a criminal offense. What had previously been an important banking practice was given much stronger legal protection. This created a powerful competitive advantage. Foreign clients could place their wealth in Switzerland with an unusually high expectation of privacy. But the same system that protected legitimate wealth could also protect wealth whose origins were far less legitimate. That contradiction became particularly disturbing during the Second World War. Switzerland remained neutral while conducting extensive commercial and financial transactions with both sides of the conflict. Swiss banks and the Swiss National Bank handled large quantities of gold originating from Nazi Germany. Historical investigations later established that some of this gold had been looted from occupied countries and from victims of Nazi persecution. The exact circumstances varied from transaction to transaction, and historians have debated the extent of individual knowledge and responsibility. But the broader historical record is clear. Swiss financial institutions became an important channel through which Nazi-controlled gold entered the international financial system. The lesson was uncomfortable. A financial system designed around confidentiality could protect legitimate wealth and illicit wealth using many of the same mechanisms. Trust, when applied without sufficient scrutiny, can become morally blind. Yet, attributing Switzerland's prosperity entirely to secret bank accounts would miss one of the most important parts of the story. Behind the financial sector, Switzerland was simultaneously building a sophisticated industrial economy. The country lacked abundant fossil fuels, so it learned to exploit what its geography did provide: water. The steep Alpine landscape and extensive river systems supported the development of hydroelectric power. That domestic energy base helped support industrialization and gave Swiss companies a reliable foundation for manufacturing. From there, Switzerland moved toward industries where precision mattered more than raw materials. Precision engineering, specialized machinery, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, medical technology, high-end manufacturing. These industries did not depend on hiding foreign money inside bank vaults. They depended on scientific research, technical education, skilled workers, infrastructure, and a business environment in which long-term investment was relatively predictable. This distinction matters. Switzerland was not simply a country that became rich by protecting other people's money. It was developing two economic engines at the same time. One was financial, the other was industrial. And beneath both was something even more important: institutional reliability. Businesses could make long-term plans. Investors could predict how the legal system would treat their assets. Political institutions changed gradually, rather than violently. Taxes and regulations were debated through a decentralized political system, and the country's neutrality reduced the risk of being dragged into the geopolitical conflicts surrounding it. This combination created a powerful economic feedback loop. Stability attracted capital. Capital supported investment. Investment created specialized industries. Specialized industries generated high-value exports. Those exports strengthened the economy. And a strong economy reinforced political stability. By the second half of the 20th century, Switzerland had transformed itself from a relatively poor Alpine confederation into one of the world's most prosperous economies. But its most famous competitive advantage was about to disappear. The age of absolute banking secrecy was coming to an end. Following the 2008 global financial crisis, governments around the world became far more aggressive in pursuing offshore tax evasion. The United States and European governments increased diplomatic, legal, and financial pressure on Swiss banks. American authorities pursued cases against Swiss institutions, accused of helping U.S. taxpayers conceal assets. The pressure became impossible for Switzerland's banking industry to ignore. The country gradually moved toward international standards for exchanging financial information. Automatic exchange of information agreements and greater transparency requirements fundamentally changed the traditional Swiss banking model. The old promise of absolute secrecy was no longer sustainable, and that created an enormous economic experiment. If Switzerland's wealth depended primarily on secret bank accounts, then removing banking secrecy should have devastated the country's economy. But that did not happen. The financial sector changed. The country adapted. Swiss GDP continued to grow, and the Swiss franc retained its reputation as a major safe haven currency during periods of global uncertainty. The banking industry lost one of its most famous advantages, but the broader economy survived. That tells us something important. Bank secrecy was never the entire Swiss wealth model. It was one component of a much larger system. The deeper asset was institutional credibility. For generations, Switzerland had accumulated something that cannot be created overnight by passing a new law: predictable courts, stable institutions, a strong currency, highly developed infrastructure, a skilled workforce, world-class education and research, political decentralization, and a reputation for remaining stable when the countries around it were experiencing political and economic turmoil. Those advantages survived the collapse of absolute banking secrecy because they were never dependent on secrecy in the first place. This is why the Swiss model is so difficult to copy. Many jurisdictions have attempted to attract international capital by introducing low taxes, financial privacy, or favorable banking regulations. Some succeeded temporarily, but very few created the deeper institutional foundation that Switzerland spent centuries developing. You cannot legislate 200 years of political stability into existence. You cannot manufacture international trust overnight. And you cannot simply copy neutrality, federalism, direct democracy, a highly educated workforce, and a culture of institutional continuity with a single piece of legislation. The Swiss story is therefore not really a story about mountains. It is a story about turning constraints into advantages. The mountains limited agriculture and made large-scale resource extraction difficult, so Switzerland specialized in activities where physical resources mattered less. Its geography made it difficult to become an agricultural superpower, so it became a center for finance, manufacturing, engineering, pharmaceuticals, and specialized exports. Its location placed it between powerful European neighbors, so it developed neutrality and political institutions designed to protect its autonomy. Instead of competing with resource-rich countries on their own terms, Switzerland found something else to sell: reliability, precision, security, predictability. Trust. These are intangible products. But global markets are willing to pay enormous premiums for them. And that may be the most important economic lesson hidden inside the Swiss story. A country does not necessarily become wealthy because it possesses enormous amounts of land or natural resources. Sometimes, the scarce resource is institutional quality itself. Switzerland became one of the wealthiest countries on Earth, not by discovering a giant oil field or controlling an enormous agricultural frontier, but by spending generations building institutions that investors believed would still be there tomorrow. Its prosperity was built through neutrality, decentralization, financial expertise, industrial specialization, scientific research, skilled labor, and an unusually strong culture of institutional continuity. But the Swiss story also carries a darker warning. The same systems designed to protect wealth can protect wealth of questionable origin. The same secrecy that can shield legitimate savings can also conceal assets connected to corruption, tax evasion, war, and atrocity. Switzerland's wartime history demonstrates why financial systems cannot rely on trust alone. Transparency and accountability matter, because capital does not automatically reveal its own moral history. The country eventually had to confront that contradiction. Bank secrecy was reduced. International information sharing expanded. The financial system became more transparent. And yet Switzerland remained wealthy. That may be the strongest evidence of all, that the real Swiss advantage was never simply the secrecy of its banks. It was the credibility of its institutions. A historically constrained, landlocked federation of Alpine cantons became one of the richest nations on Earth by making a deliberate choice. Instead of trying to dominate through physical resources, it would compete through stability, specialization, precision, and trust. The data suggests that institutional discipline maintained over decades, and sometimes centuries, can generate an economic premium powerful enough to outweigh the absence of vast natural resources. But there is one final lesson. Trust creates wealth. Absolute trust, without oversight, can create a place where almost anything can hide. Switzerland's extraordinary success therefore reveals both sides of institutional power. When trust is earned and combined with accountability, it can become one of the world's most valuable economic assets. When trust becomes secrecy without scrutiny, it can protect not only the innocent, but also the guilty. Switzerland proves that trust can be more valuable than natural resources. Subscribe for more stories explaining how nations turn power, money, and strategy into wealth. And watch the full documentary for the complete story.